So today I am delighted, excited to talk about the misnomer of Black Girl Magic. And I have this dope panel of women who I know personally, who I move with, and who I enjoy just their opinions, how they come. And I'm just really, really excited to have this conversation today. As you remember, last year we had a similar panel, and Keir, Bradford-Grey, Angeline were a part of that panel, and we promised we would have another one in 3 months, but life happens, right? So here we are again, as promised, and we are going to really dig into some things today. Before I get started, I would love to introduce the panel to you this morning, and we have, again, as I said, Angeline. She is about 5 days out from getting her PhD, and I'm going to have her, can you please just share just only the title only of your dissertation, please?
Yeah, so thanks. The title of my dissertation is The Whiteness of Academia, AKKA, The Whiteness of Academia and the Making of a Slave, a non-traditional Black girl's journey of the plantation as she screams, "I was never down with OPP. The oppression plantation paradigm that sought to equate my Black body to other people's property."
Drops the mic. We could stop the meeting right there. So that's that is Angeline Dean. Next, we have Dr. Lovell Pugh-Bassett, who is my soror, also my line sister, and she is the first African-American woman vice president of institutional effectiveness, advancement, and strategic initiatives at Camden County College. That is just a small portion of what she does and where she has come from, but she's also here with us this morning. Then we have Keir, Bradford-Grey, who's also my soror and an amazing, powerful woman. Y'all in Philly already know about the work that she does and how she moves. She was the first African-American chief public defender in both Philadelphia and Montgomery County. She is now a partner in Montgomery McCracken's litigation department. She's amazing, she rocks, and so we look forward to hearing more from Keir Bradford-Grey. And then we have the newest sister to my circle and my family, Erica Atwood, an amazing woman. Powerful is the word I would use to describe her. She's a no, she's not a gentle giant. She's a giant, and it's not gentle, but you know when she's coming, right? She has a hard footprint. Erica is the senior director of the Office of Policy and Strategic Initiatives for Criminal Justice and Public Safety at the City of Philadelphia. Mark Knight, who was our moderator, he may or may not be able to come on. He is a barrister who is specialized in international shipping litigation and commercial arbitration. So if he's able to come on, I will transfer these moderating duties to him. And I, your host, am Assata Thomas. I am the director at the Institute for Community Justice, where we serve persons who have been impacted by mass incarceration. And I think probably newly still elected chair of the Philadelphia Reentry Coalition. So today's topic is about Black Girl Magic, right? Well, it's more specifically what the misnomer of Black Girl Magic and how that impacts our lives. The first question I'm going to ask all of the panelists, and then we'll break down and ask, fewer questions to each because there's so many things to delve into. We received so many questions, but I want to ask all of you ladies, and I'm going to limit your comments to 2 minutes. What is meant by the misnomer of Black Girl Magic?
You're muted, Assata. And I don't know if you have a way to, if you want to.
Did I say, what did y'all hear last?
What is meant?
You asked the question.
Good. What is the misnomer of Black Girl Magic?
Are you just asking anyone to start?
I'm asking you to start.
All right, I'll jump in. The misnomer to me is that there is some magic that is going on and not real hustle muscle that people have to endure in order to get to the positions and spaces that they're seeing right now. I mean, we are one of many qualified women that don't always reach their value in society. And so when you get to a certain role and position, and we just saw that play out on the national stage with Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, that it has to be magic for her to be able to be where she is. But honestly, it was her right, and it was all the things that she's done. So the magic part sometimes is a misnomer, but I think we can delve into what that really means.
Thank you, Keir. Dr. Pugh-Bassett?
I think for me, the title just kind of characterizes the misunderstanding of the journey it takes to get to where powerful Black women are. The lack of understanding that the journey is not always easy, and that this is just not something that we do just because we do it. We do it out of survival, we do it out of purpose, and there's some deliberate intention to what we do and how we do it that gets us to where we are. But the misnomer part of it, I think, is the misunderstanding that this journey is just easy, and they see the end result, but they don't see the process and the steps that it takes to get there.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Dr. Pugh-Bassett. Erica?
I think that there is some, I don't think there's misnomer into magic. I think there's this misnomer into what we need as individuals. We do carry, we've been keeping folks alive since we landed on the shores of this country, be it our oppressors or our children or our families. And I think the misnomer comes from the lack of a soft place to land for us, and an ability for us to be vulnerable in places where we often carry the water or are the strength bearers in systems, having folks that have our backs, and it not always be another Black woman. What does it look like to be a Black man and give us a soft place to land? What does it look like to be a white woman and not be a part of our oppression, but a part of our liberation? And so I think that those are the conversations that, at least when I think about magic, just because it was Jesse Williams gave the speech in the award show, is just because we're magic doesn't mean we're not real. And I think that is the perspective that I often feel is, yes, I've done all this magical shit, but y'all, I'm real too.
That's good. That's good. Thank you for that, Erica. Angeline?
So I ditto to all the amazing and truthful comments that went forward. I think part of the misnomer is having this understanding of what we mean as Black women, and then having what we mean and we're in these systems, right? How does that show up, and what do they interpret our meaning as? I think that's where some of the misnomer comes in from that. I am one that I'm not real crazy about this magic term, only because of my work that I do, right? We're always rendered invisible when necessary, invisible when wanted, right? And I think part of the misnomer also is it doesn't speak directly, or people don't get that understanding of the labor that is also attached to that. And I just want to add this too, because I think that this is important too, even about the word Black girl, right? On the plantation, which Erica was talking about, and how we built this world, we never even had an opportunity to be girls. Our kids never had an opportunity to be boys. And if I take it one step further, somebody sent me something the other day about how it is a privilege to be parents, because our ancestors never had an opportunity to even be parents. And when we don't have that understanding as well, and we're in these white spaces and they don't have those understanding, I think that's where the misnomer comes into place. We never, as the lady said here, we were never even human. So again, for me, it's an understanding. We know what we mean, but when we're in these systems, what does that mean for them, and how does it show up, and how are they interpreting it?
All powerful. Thank you. Thank you all so much for those answers. Let's get into the next question. What do you do when you fear the weight of the cape? What do you do when you fear the weight of the cape? Dr. Pugh-Bassett.
So I just took a deep breath because that's heavy, right? Oftentimes we're faced with opportunities that scare the hell out of us. And I think that the first thing you do is to just dissect it and take a deep breath and consider whether or not that's an opportunity that's ordained and destined for you, and whether that's an opportunity where you may have to pour in more than you'll receive. And it's very difficult to make that decision because sometimes you want to take advantage of an opportunity where there's some reciprocity there. But I've been in spaces and places where I knew that I had to be there because there was something that I had to give more than I had to get back. And the weight of the cape may be that you're not necessarily going to get that reciprocity. And if you believe in the whole concept of you want to leave this earth with nothing left, that you've poured your heart and soul into everything you do, then you're going to have to consider moving into spaces where you may not necessarily get back what you pour in. But boy, have you made a difference and made a legacy. I mean, Cory Booker said it, listen, let my work speak for me, right? So you just have to make sure that you digest it, you dissect it, and that you consider whether or not that when you're putting on that weight, that cape, that you understand that this might be something that you have to do because this is part of your ordination, part of your destiny. And it's not necessarily going to give you the good feelings that you might want, but it's something that you have to do because that's something you need to pour into whomever is destined to receive it. So, it's not an easy decision to make. And this is why I always say that whole misnomer about the journey, because sometimes we have to make decisions that sacrifice our own ability to get back. But it's definitely something that you have to consider. And it's an important way for you to make decisions moving forward, because we can easily slip into our comfort zones and never maximize our ability to contribute.
I love that, Dr. Pugh-Bassett. One of the things, I see you, Erica, give me 1 minute. One of the things that you were saying as you're talking about the weight of the cape, I really, I think Keir said this, it's so the timing with Ketanji Brown. And when I saw her sitting, watching her and wondering like the weight of all that she is experiencing right now for a place that she damn well earned. What was that like for her sitting there? So thank you for that feedback. Erica, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I mean, what Lovell said really resonated with me just in the position that I hold now. For those who don't understand the work that I do, is I lead the city's efforts on public safety and criminal justice reform. And so I am at the nexus of what we're seeing around this gun violence issue. And I took this job in 2020 in the height of the apocalypse. And I took this job because, not because I needed it, but because it needed me. And I don't speak to that with ego. I speak to that in, would I be armchair quarterbacking whatever decisions were made? I worked on issues of criminal justice reform and violence reduction on a national level, and being able to come home and bring best practices home. What does it then mean for me as a person, being kind of in the forefront of this work and being kind of very visible in ways that my counterparts are not, being critiqued by numerous folks, and being able to not take that personal, and getting more critique than you get support, is a very difficult place to be as a Black woman trying to cape for your community, and really being honest about what is my expiration date? When is my cup too full and I need to pour out and take care of self? And having that conversation and being able to be in a place where I deal with death daily, but know that I'm here rooted in purpose. And being able to balance that with my own mental well-being, and what do I need to take off the cape for a day, or is it time to start to figure out how to pack the cape up for good?
I love that, Erica. I love that. And that's the whole thing, right? Finding out how to carry this cape. Is it a physical thing I'm carrying every day, or I'm done with the cape? I love that. And so I want to welcome our moderator, made it thankfully. Mark Knight is here. I already gave a bit of his background. And so I'm going to turn over my moderating duties back to the moderator. We have asked 2 questions, and Dr. Pugh-Bassett and Erica Atwood have answered those. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
First of all, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, and I apologize to the panel and to the audience for my late arrival. Right, so I'll just jump right in. The first question I wanted to ask, I'm not sure if you asked this already, what is meant by the misnomer of Black girl magic? Have you touched on that?
Yes, we answered that, and we answered the fear, what do you do when you fear the weight of the cape? So we're below that now.
Right, okay. I want to move perhaps in a slightly different direction, because now that you've talked about what the misnomer of Black girl magic is, having said that, have you each sort of defined your particular definition, as it were, of what Black girl magic is?
Yes.
Yeah, very good. Okay. How can, and this maybe I'll address first to Dr. Pugh-Bassett. With all of these things, we've talked about the cape and the weight of all of that, and you are grown-ups. So we think about young Black girls, for example. How can the many Black girls who have been stifled by hopelessness, low self-esteem, and or depression, how can they find their magic?
Thank you for that question. So let me say this. The first thing I would say to young Black girls feeling that way is that I was that young Black girl at some point. To remind them that the women that they look up to have traveled the same journey, I think is probably the most connecting factor that will help empower them to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. I've been traumatized by school. I've been told by my school counselor I would never amount to anything, and ended up with a doctorate. Right. And so, you know, I think it's going to be important for Black women, powerful women, Black women with that magic, to be transparent and honest about how they got to where they were. Their journeys from childhood on up. I grew up in an abusive home, grew up in the Bronx, inner city environment. Many of the things that our young girls are dealing with now dealt with self-esteem issues, dealt with low confidence, dealt with questioning of self, and so I think it's going to be important for them to see that their journey is not always going to be perfect. Their start won't be perfect all the time, but there is a possibility. And it really has to do with our responsibility as women to connect with these young girls and to be transparent about our stories. And I think Erica made a point earlier about the vulnerability. I'm not ashamed, nor will I apologize for my journey, because I think my journey is my strength, and my journey is why I'm here. I've built upon all the things that I've experienced in order to be successful in what I do. I think that it's given me the stamina to be able to withstand some of the things that Black women face in high level positions, and I would not do anything differently. I think that the biggest thing I would tell young Black girls is to persevere, be resilient, and to connect with those women and learn and learn and learn about those stories, because those are the stories that they're gonna hold on to, so that they know and understand that there is some level of possibility outside of the circumstances they're currently experiencing.
Thank you for that. I think that's very interesting. And what you've just said, if I may, if I can tie that in, Ms. Bradford-Grey, if I can bring you into this, exactly these sorts of things that Dr. Pugh-Bassett talked about, about older women effectively, tell me if I'm recapitulating correctly or not, Doctor, what you've said, but the role that those who've gone ahead can play in helping the younger ones come up. How can you link that idea to what's going on right now, or what has been going on right now with this whole Supreme Court issue and what your colleague has had to go through?
Yeah, well, I think everyone's had these experiences where they feel devalued in their work. They watch people around them either reach a level of mediocrity and get praise, and you have to continue to work beyond that just to be equal or in the same conversation. And so it does start to permeate sometimes in your psyche is, can I do more? Can I be my wildest dream? And when you see Ketanji Brown Jackson being scrutinized in a mischaracterizing in what we would think is a very petty and ticky-tack way. And that's the only words I can describe. I have to describe it, petty and ticky-tack. Nothing about her substance, but more so to score points against her. You realize that this is something that we're fighting against as a whole. And if she can withstand, I can withstand. And, you know, I keep talking about this phrase that I use, I can because she did. We do not need to shy back or sit in the backgrounds because people want to tell us how tough it's going to be for us to achieve the goals that we want. And I'll tell you, I got some inspiration from a lot of different women who tried things and failed in their minds, but the failure wasn't a failure. It was an awakening to understand that all that we can do and that we can be, that someone has to go through the fire. We have to keep going through that if we want to see better for our future generation. So I'll leave it at that because I want some of these wonderful ladies to continue to bless us with their information. But thank you for the question.
Yeah, thank you very much. Perhaps parallel to that, maybe a bit provocative, but I think it fits quite well with the idea of those who are ahead, helping the next generation go forward. And one of the members of the audience sent in a question to the effect of, how do you think Black men can support and help Black women moving forward? So, and as we saw with Cory Booker in this context as well. So what do you think is the role Black men could play? And I see all of you shaking your heads. So maybe I'll start with Ms. Thomas. How would you address that?
Yeah, so I think what Cory Booker did, the tenacity, the courage that he did in upholding a Black woman was profoundly moving for me. And even in his own Blackness of a man and all the things that Black men encounter, and having this courage to stand behind, I felt as if it was like his palm was in the small of her back, like, I got you. And it is that I got you that is necessary from Black men, I believe, to continue to uphold Black women. And so when we talk about that in just the lives and what we're doing, there are far too many. This is for Assata. In my experience, I do not claim or purport to speak for anybody else on this panel or period. In my experience, there are far too many who stand by the wayside and watch you be annihilated and not come to your defense and not come and say, hold on, you can't do that to her. And so I think that Black men are in a position wherein to stand up and just say, no, that's not what we're going to do. And so, and I'm saying that in a way that is for women who we are the double minority. And as I was giving the introductions for, we have the first, a lot of women on here are the first to do what they're doing. And that alone, Cory Booker said it best when he said, Ginger Rogers said, I think to Fred Astaire, women have to learn how to do it backwards and in heels, the same thing that a man has to do. So understanding that, and to have the support of a Black man, knowing that he's upholding you in your position, I think is vital for our community. And that is one of the reasons why there is an assault on Black men being removed from our communities, beginning from slavery. And so that's an intentional act because it leaves the woman open and vulnerable. So I believe that what Cory Booker did and like acts is what's necessary and appreciated, I might add.
All right. I think personally that this question is really rather important. So I think I'd like to sort of open the floor, as it were, and I would really like to hear from all of you on this. Would someone, as opposed to me choosing someone? Yes, Ms. Atwood.
So interesting enough, this question comes up. Many people don't know, I was the city's first director of Black male engagement. So holding that space as a Black woman in the inauguration of that space was quite interesting, to say the least. I often got questioned why a woman should be in that space. And one of the things I used to say is, but through us do you exist? And you literally came through us. And to have that conversation of unsiloing the gender conversation around how we support one another was really key for me. I think that there's not a one way to be a Black woman. There's not a one way to be a Black man. Masculinity and femininity show up different and on scales. How do we have a deeper conversation about that in getting away from this patriarchal silo of gendering us and how we support one another and what that support could look like? I think for me, and speaking from my experience, both professionally and personally, what I need from men is oftentimes for you all to work through your trauma too. And know that we know you've been through stuff, and it's okay for us to see that you are vulnerable as well. Because sometimes when you all hold that cape and you are the strong ones, we don't feel like we've got a soft place to land. And so where do we heal together? And it not just be the gendered conversation. How do you stand for us when we're not in the room? The last couple of weeks, I would say professionally, have been particularly difficult because there is a body of Black men, predominantly Black men, who are standing up in a way in critique of my work and never actually talking to me. And it holds, the optics of that are really unfortunate. And there's an opportunity to grow and to grow together in faith for community that has been missed because we're adversarial now. And I just think that I feel like we have an opportunity to pivot against white supremacist norms that tell us we have to be this or that when we can be all the things at once and together.
I just want to, can I just jump in and I have a little bit of different experience with Black men. I have found that Black men, honestly, Black men have been my mentors throughout my journey in being first. And unfortunately, I didn't have a woman to model after in some of the roles that I've achieved. Of course, I have women around me that are supportive and tell me all the things to keep my confidence and perseverance based on what I have to go through. But I will say that I have found Black men to be extremely supportive to me and encouraging me and praying for me. I have some really great friends that constantly let me know you are enough. I'm proud of you. And so those things to me keep me going. Now, something that Erica said is that I hope those words and that resonance is continued outside of my presence. When people begin to tear me down based on standards that were placed on no one else, keep the conversation fair. I don't expect not to be scrutinized. If I'm reaching or attaining certain positions, to whom much is given, much is required. I do expect to be held accountable for my failures, for my challenges. And I wouldn't say all failures, because everything you don't succeed in right away is not a failure. It's definitely a learning experience. But I don't want to be devalued based on one mistake or something that didn't go wrong, that I had the courage or go right, that I had the courage to step out there on. And, when I show courage, I need for Black men to show commitment to me. And I'm going to self-evaluate. I'm going to keep striving to be my best self, but I also need a village. And that village just can't be my ladies and my sisters. It has to be the males as well. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, thank you for that. Yes.
I will add real quickly, Erica, I appreciated both of what you said. And I look at my own background. I had the support most often from the Black men, family-wise, community-wise. But I look at, even when Assata was talking about my dissertation, when I was on that plantation, I didn't have the Black and brown men supporting me. In fact, I had them operating as white injected oppressors that they were. And that's a part of calling that out too. And so I fully agree. And I want to thank Assata for these last 2 years of conversations, having a Black man facilitate, so that we can also bring Black men into these spaces to hear our conversations, to hear what we're saying, to hear what we're thinking. Because sometimes I want to think that maybe they don't know how. Some, not all. I'm not giving everybody a pass. Or they may not have heard some of these conversations to hear what we need. So with having these Black men facilitating these conversations, it is now an opportunity to prepare a space where you don't have an excuse anymore. And if you still need some type of conversation, you can come to one of us and ask. And you can have these conversations with your brothers. Hopefully now you're going back to your brothers and holding them accountable as you hold yourself accountable.
Thank you for that.
Don't look to me to add a single thing to what these women said.
All right. So they've covered all the ground. Okay, then, superb. Well, thank you for that, ladies. Yes, did you want to add something?
Just want to, it's interesting enough that before you even got to this question, I got a text from a brother who is always encouraging as well, G. Lamar Stewart, and he texted before we even got to this thing, and he sent the thing and said fire, and a clip of all of us Black women on there. And that's what I'm talking about, right? That type of support, that type of, I got you, y'all go, yeah, G. Lamar, thank you, go get it. So exactly that, and it happened again before you asked the question. And so that's the type of support that I am speaking to. So thank you.
Superb. Well, ladies, thank you for that. And I'm going to go out, step slightly out of my moderator role just to say that I think the beauty of what you've all articulated, I mean, you've outlined what some of the problems are, what's missing, but then what has helped and what's needed. And particularly perhaps for younger Black men who might be listening to this, that to understand, or let me put it differently, perhaps I'm speculating that we Black men or younger Black men, because of this Black girl magic, whatever that is, i.e. the strength of Black women, perhaps one takes it for granted and doesn't realize, actually, my girlfriend, my mother, my sister, they actually need me. Yes, they are strong. Yes, they are powerful. But as Assata said, just the hand in the back. You can manage it on your own. You don't necessarily need me in that, us, but just to have that hand in the back, or that mentor, as Ms. Bradford-Grey said, then we're fine. And I think that's a beautiful concept, personally, if I can be allowed to add that comment. Superb. Thank you very much. I'm going to now move in a slightly, in a very different, provocative direction, and I'm going to direct this question firstly at Ms. Dean. Someone wrote in, how do we deal with microaggressions from other Black women in the workplace or elsewhere?
Woo. So that has been my world these past 3 to 4 years. And after finding out that I am the first that they have documented to call Black women out the way that I'm doing in my dissertation, because of their intentional predatory behaviors of those who they learned from, I would say one of the things that I did do was I went to those women and I had a conversation, and I let them know how I felt. I let them know what I thought. And I let them know that if it did not stop happening, what I was going to do. They had to have this understanding that you don't intimidate me. And I was not coming to cause friction I really needed an understanding of why is it important for you to assassinate me as a means of thinking that you're going to look better or you're going to get promoted, or like, can we have this conversation of self-reflection, why we're doing this? We're two Black women striving to do whatever it is that we need to do. And when it did not stop, then I formed my own community. And what I had to do was I looked at other Black women who were experiencing the same things that I was experiencing. And then we all collectively began to have conversations. When that still didn't work, quite frankly, Mark, that's why I did what I did. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. But I did try to go and have a conversation. And what I hear all these women saying too is the importance of knowing your own value. And I had to look at them and say, okay, they don't know their value, because if putting me down and you think makes you look good, I mean, or you telling me to play the white man's game, just play the game, girl. This is America. And I'm like, no, that's your America. That ain't my America. My ancestors didn't die for me to just keep furthering, perpetuating whiteness and me being your property. And so I think I really, at first I was angry, like I'm not gonna lie about that. I was angry, but now I'm at a space that I really feel sorry for you. It turned into really like the sympathy, empathy thing, but I had to keep doing my thing in spite of, because my whole thing is I know who I am. And I think Lovell said it, really all of them are saying about the legacy and that's coming behind us, and opening up that space. Again, wearing the weight of that cape to open that space to say to other Black and brown people coming behind me, you don't have to deal with this. You don't have to allow people to dehumanize you for their betterment. You still can speak up. You still can speak out. I followed all the protocol. I did everything I did, but it still didn't matter. And when I found out that, you know what, Ange, you don't have to keep doing all these type of things. They don't know who they are. That's their issue. I tell people all the time, I had a lot of jobs, but one of the jobs I never had was working in baggage claim in the airport. So I'm not picking up your bags and I'm not claiming your baggage. So that's your stuff. And I'm gonna do what I got to do to keep moving forward. And having these spaces, right, with strong, powerful Black women that to lean on is also, to me, another part of the weight of that cape. Right? Having them brothers coming up in these spaces is another part of that. So that's why I'm always grateful for these conversations. So that's how I would answer that. Baby, it ain't about you, it's about them. Keep moving.
Well, thank you for that. I think it's a very interesting answer. One aspect of it that I found particularly interesting is the point you made that they don't know who they are, because what comes to my mind is, all right, if that is an issue, where does it come from? And or how can you address it? How can you deal with it? How can you teach those coming behind you to not only be better, but to handle it when they face it, which I think is perhaps a very important aspect of that.
Could we all?
Yes, please.
Just add a little bit.
Please.
You know, I've seen a lot of different women in these spaces, and I am grateful to powerful women who are very confident in themselves. I feel like we commune in such a great way because we know we're stronger together, and there's room for more than one of us. The society will make you think that there's only room for one of us. And I think that that's where you get a lot of sometimes, and I don't see microaggressions, I see macroaggressions when it comes to some Black women. They don't do the whole, niceties thing. They
that right there.
Let you know. But, some of it does come from the fact that anytime we get somewhere, it's like a big deal that one of us gets somewhere. And we have to start making it a norm that there's so much more room for more than one. And once one of us gets in there and succeeds, then we show what we can do. So it opens doors for others. But when you come through those doors, when a Black woman opened that for you, do not disparage that person publicly. Sure, you may have some differences of opinion or whatever that is, but understand something. You stood on these shoulders, and what it took to get there to open those doors for you to come through, there should be nothing but gratefulness and humility for what that journey was. And so to come in and be a kind of a puppeteer, someone else's agenda by doing things that may make it seem like the person before you didn't know what they were doing, or invalidating their value. There's not a lot of room for that in this world. And I would just say we need to really understand what it means to come through these doors together, not one by one, but together.
And Keir, I thank you for saying that, because that's the one thing that I say too. I don't believe in I don't even use the term microaggressions, because there's nothing micro about them, right? We've gone through this our whole lives. There's nothing micro. This is coming from a macro level, and you meant what you said, you meant what you did, and all of those types of things. And one of the things that, because I was around women who are supposed to be doing access, equity, all of these type of things, and I kept saying, you're looking at the I, you're looking at yourself, like you just were speaking about. And that's very Eurocentric. Our culture is the we. So why are we not raising up one another? Why can't we all go? When one goes, we all go, right? And so I thank you for just adding that piece to it as well.
If I could jump in, go ahead, Erica.
I would say just really quickly. So one of the things that I wrote down when you were talking, Dr. Dean, was grace. And that is a place that I've landed. I've worked in environments where there have been some really unfortunate situations with sisters. And my lesson in those dealings has been grace, because of the insecurity that exists. And sometimes it's from someone who's come before you, who's defending their body of work because you want to make a change or an innovation. And my lesson in getting those macroaggressions and those hyperaggressions and those hyper localized kind of moments of insecurity and outburst have been really centering grace and understanding what they went through to get there. And they haven't worked through what that is and how that has affected their psyche, and allowing myself to hold space for their crazy, but still being able to be functional in a place and holding boundaries as well, because most of them have horrible boundaries.
I love that, Erica. I was thinking almost along the same lines in terms of what you're saying about grace. It's having the ability to understand that some women are still hemorrhaging and that blood is leaking out onto us. I'm not going to say inability to heal, but their lack of addressing that wound is what is pouring out onto us. It's that blood from their lack of addressing their own wounds. And so we put a title on it, or we put some more letters behind the name, or we put a new position behind the name and say that we have arrived and this is that, but still not addressing those wounds. Dr. Pugh-Bassett spoke to it earlier about the low self-esteem, things that I think I'm by myself, right? That we've gone through, and addressing our own wounds, healing ourselves, and healing, as I have come to know, it is not something that happens in a moment. It's an onion. It's layers of healing. And when you've reached the epitome you think you have, then there's another layer that you're finding out that needs to be healed. But in terms of the aggressions, particularly from other Black women, I feel that a lot of that has to do with this. I still don't know who I am, and I'm hemorrhaging, and that hemorrhaging is coming out on you. And so while attempting to hold space, sometimes I'm able to do that gracefully. Other times I'm not. Like, you need to go get healed, like, because we're not going to do this every day. So I went through my healing work, and you need to go do your work, because you're not going to keep bleeding on me every day. So I just wanted to put that in there.
And the misnomer is that I don't have to fix you. That's not my responsibility to fix
you. Better get
right?
it.
That's the misnomer. And then, I think that there's something to be said about reminding people that while there is enough space for all of us, we all have a purpose. And so you might not be purposeful in my position, but you are functional in yours, and that there's a continuum of contributions that we can make in the work that we do. So everybody doesn't have to be the VP. There might be a need for you to be the secretary, a need for you to be an administrator, a need for you to be something different. And you can be viable in that space without hating on me, right? So to offer this continuum of contribution, I think is going to be important for people to understand, so that there is not the necessity of devaluing folks. My responsibility isn't to get you to where I am, it's to get you to be the best at where you are. And if it empowers you to do better and be better, then so be it. But we all have a contribution to make, and that contribution occurs on a continuum. I look at Judge Jackson, and I'm not her, but boy, did she teach me how to be calm, to do what I need to do in my own space, right? I use what she shared and what she demonstrated to be an example to who I should be in my own space. And she said it a couple of times, I'm gonna stay in my lane. This is my lane, I'm a judge. This is my lane. You're asking me questions about Congress. That's your lane, right? And she was very clear about that with unapologetically. Again, I go back to that unapologetically. Like, it's okay for you to be in the space you're in, for me to be in the space I'm in. I don't have to devalue you. You don't have to devalue me, because this whole continuum of contribution that we can make to society, there's so much room for all of us. And we have to understand that we need to be careful about tearing each other down, because the intended purpose is for us to collectively be able to move forward. And we can't do that if we're not allowing people to move in the spaces that they were destined to be in.
And I want to, Mark, can I just say this? Please, and when you spoke about purpose, Lovell, what happened is them wearing their mask. And that's what I would say, Assata, right? You, it's okay, you got your mask on, baby. While you're laughing out loud, I see you. I see you, and I see the mask. I see your pain, right? But while you're laughing out loud, you're bleeding out loud as well. But what you said to me was so important, Lovell, because what I found out was I needed them to do that to me, because them treating me in that manner now became my work. And it's a work that's the gap. It's a work that's not move. People are not moving into and having these conversations around. So your pain became part of my purpose. And when I began to look at that as well, it was like, listen, I don't even have time to be mad about that. Thank you, because you just put money in my pocket, whether you really wanted to do that or not. So thanks, right? But my hope is that you do get healed. So yeah, when it was meant for me to have to go through that. Yeah.
Thank you for that. What I wanted to comment was that what I think I'm hearing, sort of an undercurrent, and so I'm asking you to tell me if there's some if I'm correct to any degree, that in this matter of dealing with other Black women who are not that far along yet, I'll put it that way, that you have this particular challenge as though you have learned how to swim, or you have brought yourself in the boat, and there's someone out there, this other Black woman, who is drowning, and you have to find the balance. Do I throw her a life ring? Do I swim out to this person? Because a drowning person will pull you down. What is the strategy that I take to help that person from not drowning, while at the same time not allowing them to pull me under as well? That's a little bit what I think I'm hearing is some of your challenge. Could you, or is it something else? That's what I'm hearing. So you can...
Yeah, for me, I will deal with anyone in the same manner until you show me that I should not. So if my nature is to go dive in and pull you out, then I'm going to do that. Unless and until you show me that this is not worthy of my time and my efforts, or it's not advancing for all of us. Look, I've had some amazing young women that have been, just the wind beneath my wings as well. But I've also had some that really play the pawn game, where they are really pawns in someone else's chessboard to kind of devalue and attack, Black women, strong Black women. So it's a matter of who that person feels like they want to be. in this, I guess, history-making climb, and whether they want to be on the wrong side or the right side of history, that's their choice. I'm going to remain true to myself. I'm going to remain true to what I believe, and I'm going to continue to open my doors to any, especially any Black woman that wants to come through with me and give you everything raw, honest about my journey. I'm not going to pretend that it was all easy, but I'm not going to pretend that it's not doable. I do want to say this last thing. One of the things that I said I was going to do when I got into private practice is start to represent first in leadership. And those first are generally women of color, because I know the unique circumstances that they go through when they are evaluated, when they're judged, and even being taken seriously enough to be the best that position has offered. Even when they're doing it, when they're succeeding at every level, it's still taken away or shut down as there's some other reason why you're succeeding. And so I said to myself, I know what that looks like. The needs are unique. There are people that appoint you to these roles and often assign you responsibility, but not the power. There are people that are underneath you that feel like they have a right to strip the power away from you, and that they should usurp the power because they're not used to seeing you in that role and making decisions, or they just don't like the fact that we have the power to give the green light. Because it may look different than what they think we ought to be doing. And there's been Black women that have been very supportive. There have been Black women that I wish had been a little bit more vocal. You know, they may be supportive of me in silence, but they're not saying the things that need to be said when it counts. And then there's been some Black women who've been used in a way that they've allowed themselves to be used. So it's all across the gamut. And I don't want to just, make it seem like, hey, I'm afraid of Black women and what they can do. I'm not. I'm going to give you my moment. I'm going to give you what I've got until you prove me otherwise.
Okay, all right. If I can get one more person to comment on that, perhaps Angeline.
Well, I think Dr. Lovell said it too perfectly. It's not my responsibility. However, I may come. And then Keir said, when you show me who you are, I believe you. And then Assata said, sometimes I give them grace and sometimes I don't, right? So it's really what's going on and what's happening. I think you just have to really, what is that? Like someone else said, know your lane, but know who's sitting where on the rows, right? That was what was strategic for me. Okay, this Black woman, she ain't gonna say nothing. This Black woman, I gotta watch her. This Black woman, I can come have a conversation to, but I still gotta be careful. Or I can come in these spaces where I got sisters who really know what I'm talking about and may even be able to direct me as well. And I don't have time to pull you up out of a boat because sometimes they don't want to get pulled up.
Yes.
They want to stay where they are. And so I let them. But it can't stop us as women moving forward. We still got to do what we got to do. And again, it goes back to the weight of the case, right? It goes back to, again, knowing who you are, knowing your purpose, and knowing how that's going to show up.
All right. Thank you for that. If I can move to another question, unless anyone else wanted to add anything on that, but I see time is ticking away. Good. I think it's an interesting question because I think it rolls in a few different issues. What the person sent in was, how do you find balance between roles you play and your authentic self? Before you answer that, I'm going to add a nuance to that question, taking advantage of my role as moderator. And this idea of balancing the roles you play, number one, and number two, our topic today, Black girl magic. So what I'm trying to understand, this idea of Black girl magic, and I'm sorry I missed your definitions, does that describe a behavior, or does that proscribe how you're supposed to behave? Does it describe who you naturally are for it, and natural can be for whatever reasons? Or is it something prescriptive that says this is how you are supposed to behave? Because that ties into me to this idea of a role. Are you playing, do I now have to play a role? Excuse me. do I, as a Black woman, now have yet another thing to do? I have yet now another role to play, the role of Black girl magic, or is it not a role? Silence.
No.
Yeah, I'll start. And so thinking about role, and so there's this concept of person role system. And so kind of if you look at it as an inverted pyramid, I am who I am as Erica. I serve a role as senior director, and I work within a system of government. And so thinking about kind of the person role system, that is always how I look at myself. I don't have, and when it comes to Black Girl Magic, I don't have the ability, and this is a lot of Kimberly Crenshaw's work around intersectionality, to delineate between being a woman and being Black. It's a joined phrase. Like, I can't say I'm just a Black person, like I'm a Black woman. And there are reasons why I say that in terms of how I choose to show up in the world, and how I identify with my femininity and my masculinity in spaces and in what is perceived to be masculine behavior oftentimes. And I will say that I don't know how else to be but my authentic self. That I don't have the energy for it. I never have. I think I came out the womb being disruptive. And so like to continually, like I think back to how I used to drive my vice principal crazy in high school. And it was just like, I was like, I'm not doing that. I would ask questions, and I'm still that person now, kind of like at damn near 50 years old. It's like, I'm not doing that. And these are the things that we shouldn't be doing. And that's some bullshit. And let's keep moving. And so I'm gonna keep being my authentic self in that space, because it's not just the role that I play kind of as with Black Girl Magic, but it's who I am, who my experience have taught me, what my ancestors have imparted upon me through their journey, through genetics or through stories. And I think that's how we all show up, or especially those of us who are doing our healing work, because I will never claim to be wholly healed. I will claim to be, I am always working to continue to heal, to be better every day. And in that space and on that journey and in that path, I'm going to show up with all my intersectional self. You're going to get this unapologetic Black woman who is going to show up in ways in my person, in my role, and within a system all of which needs some disruption.
Thank you. But if I may, with respect to focus it on the question though, this person says, how do you find balance between the roles you play and your authentic self? So
there's no balance. There's nothing to balance. I think that's my point. There's nothing to, it just is. And I show up pretty much the same person every place I go. And everybody doesn't have that privilege to be able to do that. And I understand that, particularly if you work in private sector, you can't always do that. But I'm saying kind of who Erica is I show up pretty much the same every place I go. And so for me, I don't feel like I have to balance, nor do I have the energy to be anything other than who I am.
So I have to balance. And here's what I mean. Principles, I do not balance, right? I do everything in a principled way. I have certain principles that I will not abandon for any role, because my purpose has to be bigger than the job. And I go into everything using that understanding of what do I want to use this role to do? So say, for instance, when as a public defender, it was natural, very natural fit, very natural to fight against the establishment. Now I'm in private practice. I had to figure out a way to get people to care about things I cared about so that I can do the work that continue to be meaningful for me. And how was that done? Well, I couldn't go in with my chest poked out and ready to tell them what they need to be thinking, but I had to kind of get into their world first. I had to to kind of understand what makes you tick and then make you feel comfortable with me. But one thing for sure I do not shy away from conversations about race and equity. I do not. I do it in a way that's conversational, that's intellectual, that's high level, and that allows people to understand that these are my principles. This is what I feel, and this is why I'm doing this type of work. And thank you for allowing me to do that. Thank you for being such a great ally. We are in this together, and it makes us all great. So I have to play certain roles, but principles do not suffer. So that balance is approach versus principle, I guess. I shouldn't say versus. That balance is approach and trying to bring in your principles through your approach. And so I've had to finesse that a lot better each place that I've gone in order to get collaboration and to be able to be impactful.
Thank you for that. So do I understand you then? Would it be correct to say your advice, if you will, to this particular audience member who says, how do you find that balance, is to bring your principles with you? Your starting point are your principles, and you bring that with you as it were your guide. And there's one word I just want to tease that out a bit. And courage, right? You've got to be able to have the courage to have that conversation with people that you don't know how it will be received. But everything you've done was not from a vein of maliciousness or to make anyone feel bad. And if they can't take it or handle it, now you know what you're dealing with. Do not give up. But really strategize another way. Start to work with other people and work on that person if that's the person you need to convince. If not, move on. But I'm just saying, don't lack the courage to say what makes you so unique. Why are you here? I am one of 2 Black lawyers at my firm. And if I didn't talk about things that were related to equity, inclusion, driving corporate interests to do more, to do better, then why am I here? I'm not here to assimilate into you. I'm here to show you how rich you can be with me and with the things that I bring to the table. All right, thank you very much indeed.
And Mark, please, I think for us as Black women too, and Black men as well, we have that gift of knowing when to code switch. Like, yeah, I know when Erica talks about we bring our authentic self, but we bring that authentic self too, even when we know how to code switch. And that's a part of the balancing as well. Right? I know sometimes I'm in my place in different places and I say, okay, do you really want all of Angeline? Or do I need to say this away that all of Angeline may not allow you to hear what you need to hear? So you tell me which Angeline, because I know how to code switch. So you let me know which one you need to show up, because the end goal is I need you to hear. I need you to have an understanding. And I'll go either way. But like Keir said, now I have the courage to do it, but the principle of this matter can come to you from over this side, or it can come to you from over this side. Just let me know which one you need, and we can have that conversation. So I think that's a part of the balancing.
All right, Thank you for that. I want to check in. I loved what both Keir and Erica said, which is because I think sometimes like there's a struggle of how I'm showing up, right? And are you too much for a certain environment? Like, are you? And I just show up. And I think that relaying that in terms of these are my principles. These are non-negotiables. This is what I stand for, and this is just going to be non-negotiable. But showing up, as Angeline said, in some spaces, showing up with all of myself is going to be counterintuitive to a higher purpose that I'm there for. And so it's kind of like, it's not being inauthentic in that I'm being somebody else. It's just that they can't take the 100 Assata, so I'm gonna dial that back to 50 because the end goal is to get what I need. And not so much what I need, but for the persons who I purport to support need. Because it's not about me, it's about what does my community need? What do the people that I'm supporting need? What does whatever demographic I'm working with at that time need? So sometimes it requires dialing back, but it's not dialing, I'm still showing up as my true authentic self.
All right, thank you. Dr. Pugh-Bassett, I wanted to get you on. I originally wanted to direct this question to you. So,
listen,
which is not to say the contribution, which is not to say the contribution. These women put a
period on it, exclamation point and all. I mean, I think that it loops back to the whole contemplation of you bearing the weight of the cape. When you make that decision to move into those spaces, you know, again, that you're pouring into something that you might not get as much out of. And that if you do that, and you have to do that, you're going to find yourself in a position where you have to certainly stay true to yourself. I've been on 1 million islands alone, 1 million of them. But you have to make sure that you're prepared to go into spaces and be the voice, the only voice for a whole bunch of folks behind you, right? This bridge called my back is the pathway by which a lot of the voices that you represent are going to be able to sit at a table that they're not invited to. And I think that it's something that you have to be very deliberate about. Just like Assata said, you know, I have to figure out how to reach the end goal. I have to accomplish something. There's a task that I have ahead of me, and I have to determine how to approach it to get to that without compromising a single thing that I believe. And it's not easy, because when you're standing in your truth, oftentimes you're standing all by yourself. And it might not just be for a moment. It might be for a year. It might be for 2 years and 3 years and 4. But you have to be confident in knowing that you have a purpose and that what you're doing is contributing to the greater good. So, finding that balance in order to know how to access spaces and places to be at a table on behalf of the voices you're representing is difficult, but you have to maneuver that. And that is the price that comes with being in these type of positions.
All right, thank you. So to just finish that up, to benefit from the knowledge, from the experience and wisdom of all 5 of you ladies, to help those who might be listening, who say, how do I find this balance between role and authentic self? Just 1 or 2 words. What is your advice? What is it sounds like to me, ultimately you're saying authenticity informs who you are in each context. A role is, if you will, a thing that you do. Authenticity is who you are. So you bring who you are to each and every role. And who you are can be informed by your principles, as Keir said, and courage. That's what I remember right at the moment. But of course, what all of you have added to that. What is your authenticity? And once you're clear in your authenticity, you bring that to these external roles. Is that fair to say that that's all right? So we've accomplished something today. Lovely. Okay, moving on. The tying again to this idea of Black girl magic. Do you feel that the achievements, this is another question that someone sent in. It's a bit abstract perhaps, but do you feel that achievements of the Black woman or Black women can be undermined when we use this standard? Perhaps they mean this word or phrase.
I would say this, for those who know, right? Meaning the magic is in the work that had to be done despite all the obstacles. And so when you have reached somewhere where people are like, how did she do that? We know what it took. We know the strategy it took, the days of re-examining ourselves that we had to sometimes go through because we did get those negative tones and the moment that there's something that didn't go right, we get the, oh my God, I knew you weren't worthy of this title. All of those things that many of our counterparts do not face when they reach certain levels, but we do. But still to achieve and succeed in initiatives and goals and missions has everything to do with our experience in this world. I mean, our experience mirrors those communities that are vulnerable and that we see ourselves in some of those roadmaps and in terms of how they look at their opportunities in life. So I say that, look, some of people that, are still striving to get certain places and do certain things and may not believe that they can, may think that it kind of decreases our accomplishment. But for those who know what that magic is made of, I think that it's an applause for us. And when we see people like Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, we say Black girl magic, because it takes magic to sit there and not curse somebody out for those types of things. I mean, that's all I can say about it, and that's my opinion.
But no, thank you for that, because I think personally, what you've just done, which I think ties this all together very neatly, it's been something that I think has been is something that should be addressed in this whole idea of Black girl magic. You've just very neatly, I think, tied together the idea of Black girl magic, but what that really is. You've described what it is Black women are able to do and why they're able to do it. And then when it's done, the outside looks on and says, well, that's the magic. But you've said, really, it's not magic. It's, excuse me, damn hard work that we've done. It might appear to magic to you. So that's what I like that you've just done. You've just linked that now. So it's not some hairy, fairy make-believe. Yeah. And it's something that's accessible. Yeah. This is what I'm hearing.
I had to give a shout out to the other women.
Made it accessible. Well, all of you really.
Because they said that, we said that, they said they talked about this earlier. So definitely give it a shout out to them.
I see. Fair enough, yes. Yeah. So it makes it accessible to all the women listening, I hope.
I think Erica, we're cognizant of the time. I think Erica wanted to check in.
Yeah, I think just really quickly, what I wrote down in the asking of the question was perseverance. And when we talk about kind of Black girl magic, I have never viewed the phrase as a perspective that negated our perseverance, our strength, and our ability to survive and thrive. I think that it is a recognition that we have persevered through all the shenanigery and got into a point where we can create something beautiful in spite of the scraps you have given us. That is at least my perspective of it, is we've made magic out of scraps and we've persevered through all of these things in a way that we uniquely do as Black women. And that is kind of how my perspective about kind of Black girl magic is and how we show up in this. It's through perseverance, creativity, mutual support. It's through all those things do we then are able to create this magical potion that is us and what we can accomplish.
And since, Assata, you touched on the time, and that is true. So I want to, a couple of questions I really wanted to get out there, because I hope that they might offer, again, something for the listening audience, the women in particular, the younger women. And that would be, what are some, and this is a question sent in as well, what are some daily habits that women can do to embrace their Black girl magic? Perhaps if each of you
can I
briefly and succinctly.
So the first thing that I would do is surround yourself with a village of women that speak into you, that don't want you to be good, but want you to be great. You got to know your circles. I flow in and out of circles depending upon what my needs are, right? And it's okay. It's not that I'm using people, but I think that different people serve different interests for me. So you have to be very deliberate about your circles, because the energy that you get from people can certainly make or break your success and how you move. And so I think the first thing that I would say to the audience is that you just really need to reevaluate your circles, because there are some people in your circle, male, female, white, Black, indifferent, who may not necessarily look for you to be great. And you just want to establish a rapport with people that constantly pour into you, And of course you need to reciprocate, but you have to make sure that you don't spend wasted time on nurturing relationships that serve no purpose for you. I mean, I've had to cut people off because at some point in time, if you want to achieve this magic and you want to get further and further up, you are not going to have time to be wasting your energy on unnecessary relationships. I mean, that goes for familiar relationships too. And I know I might be touching a nerve for some people, but you have to be careful about who you surround yourself with. And so for me, I would say the first thing that you need to do is in terms of how you deal with all of this is to reestablish your circles and know who your people are in different spaces that you flow into.
So be careful of one's environment, specifically with respect to the people in it. All right. Angeline, perhaps, could you add to this?
I was laughing when Dr. Lovell, what she was saying, know when to have the, and be ready to have the power to hit delete, right? So I think that is so true. Another thing too is, one thing I think that helped me growing up was writing my own self affirmations. Who do I say I am, right? Because when I know who I am, then what the world puts on me, I can say, you know, let me think about that. Or, no, that's not who I am. And I'm okay. That may be your thought process, but that's not who I am. And I know, and listening, not only having your circle, but listening, like as Assata just sent me something the other day, listening to those powerful people who pour into you as well. You may not even know them, right? But they sisters that look like you. And sometimes it's not even sisters. It could be other people, as Dr. Lovell said, that are pouring into you. But first, know who you are, right? What's your destiny? Where are you going? Where do you want to go? Have your own strategic planning for your own life. And then write those self-affirmations to get there.
Yeah, I want to check in on that. I think that there should be three types of people in your life. Ones that you were pouring into, ones that are on your level, and ones that are pouring into you. And when those three things get off balance, that's when the draining and the energy transfers that are some toxic. Because if you're consistently the one that's pouring into, then you're not getting what you need from sisters who are, or whoever who's pouring into you, and thus the imbalance. And so I think one of the ways that we can operate in this is to recognize in any of those three levels, are we imbalanced? Are we are we pouring out so much that we don't have anything left to ourselves? Have we opened up ourselves to have someone pour into us? Or have we opened up ourselves with this whole Black girl magic? Are there women who we have opened up ourselves enough to be vulnerable with and to say, yo, your panties showing on that one, pull it, you need to check yourself on that, right? But that requires a level of vulnerability. And that's why in this one of the meditations that Angie and I are listening to, I just did it to Erica, about the sister said her circle is a lowercase O, and what that means, and how, as Dr. Pugh-Bassett said, that like sometimes you got to let things go, and I'm not mad at you, but I have to protect me. I have to protect my energy, and not just for me, but for those who I'm pouring into. And so the ability to hit delete and say no is a complete sentence, all of those things, I think there is a balance between each level that we have to constantly maintain.
Thank you. Keir, did you want to? No, sorry, I thought Keir wanted to jump in. Erica?
Yeah, I will say kind of my one thing is listen to your intuition. A lot of times we second guess ourselves, and every time that I do the forensics on when I second guess myself, it was a disaster. And so I think it's even if your intuition isn't the ultimate decision you make, at least inquire as to why you're feeling the way you are, and trust that feeling. And then be able to build a path to whatever thing or do whatever project in a way that honors what you felt about this thing or about this person, and creating those boundaries in a way that that protect you from whatever harm may be intended or unintended towards you. And so just trust your intuition. Take a beat sometimes, ask the question, hold the answer, whatever it is, just trust your intuition.
Thank you.
Just to round this up for me, I'm going to say this. And first of all, what all these ladies said are spot on. So I won't even pile on to that. But what has helped me personally, I've had to journal my journey because the magic is in the writing of what happened at each stage and how I kept going. And sometimes when I look back on where I was, just my mental space, and then you turn maybe a couple of months later to a different chapter and figure out what you were able to accomplish. There it is. That is affirmation that what you were going through, you still achieved. And so even when recently there was a book written about a particular place that I held a really high position, and all the history in that place and the people that made the history, and I was not in it. And so when I look at what my journaling is based on what I've done and what I've achieved, which no one else has achieved in that role, I know there's still another story to be told, where they may have history, but I'm going to have her story. And so that's keep your worth, know your worth, journal your worth, collect your own records.
Thank you very much. Right, Assata, we have 5 minutes left. How would you like to have us proceed?
I would like for everybody to give their 30-second Black Girl Magic ending, and then I'll wrap it up when everyone else is done. This has been amazing. So you can start with querying the panel for them to wrap it up. Thank you.
Right. Okay, well, thank you very much. Well, ladies, the time has flown by, but thank you that I'll take the opportunity to say thank you that I could have been a part of it and to play my role as a Black man with an opportunity to metaphorically put my hand in the small of your back to offer you that much more energy and structure to be exactly what you are. So maybe we can start with Erica, a few 30 seconds of closing.
Sure. I mean, I think what I will say is, sisters, be kind to yourself. Give yourself grace. Allow yourself to make mistakes and learn from them. That's one of the things that I have had to learn is it's okay to screw it up sometimes, and what do you learn from that? And it's in work, in personal relationships, in romantic relationships. There's not a relationship that I haven't learned from. Sometimes you need new friends, and that's okay. That's also being kind to yourself. I know sometimes you don't need new friends, like, and what is the right time and place to make those decisions. But what I will say, if you hear nothing else from us today, is be kind to yourself.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Pugh-Bassett, please.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Erica said. I would also add to that just remind yourself that your magic is the totality of your experience. Your life journey, every hiccup, every bump in the road, every 2 steps forward and 10 steps back is an important part of your journey. And each of those parts of your journey really do show up no matter where you are. And sometimes it gives you the grit that you need to persevere through some very, very difficult situations, as particularly the higher you go. So just understand and don't be ashamed of your journey. Be very transparent about it to yourself. Like Erica said, give yourself some grace. It's okay if you don't get it right. It's a growing opportunity. Allow yourself to grow and learn from every interaction that you have with people, good or bad, positive or negative. But more than that, just really, really understand that you cannot separate yourself from anything that you've gone through, and that totality of your experience is going to be the thing that makes you stand out amongst others.
Thank you. Angeline, please.
So first, I would like to say it has been more than a pleasure being on this panel with amazing, brilliant, bold, unapologetically Black women. Love it. And you too, sir, Black man. So I would say to other Black women, I would say that remember that you are light You are love. You are joy. You are value. You are worth. You are sanctuary. You are a paradigm shift. You have overcome, your people have overcome things that no one else could. And yet you're still standing, right? And you're still achieving. You're still the first of this and the first of that. Know that you are not only legacy, but you are dynasty. And the last thing I would say is you are whatever and whoever you say you are. And that's how I would leave it. Like, just remember who you are, and especially Black joy, because we live in such painful spaces. And make sure that you get your rest, because rest is revolution and rest is resistance to the forced resilience and the forced grit that we live in every single day.
Thank you.
And I want to say to Dr. Keir, thanks. I have my journal right here.
Yes. Good. Keep that. Look, I know we're over time, so I'm just going to say thank you so much. These women have wrapped it up really well. And all I can tell other women is that your experiences are validated. Be in groups, be with women who can validate those experiences so you don't suffer in silence or believe that they're not worthy of being voiced. That has been very therapeutic and helpful. And everything else they said, please incorporate that as well. But thank you for having me. I've had a ball.
Thank you very much indeed.
As usual, thank you all. Y'all all make my heart smile. Makes me proud to work among such amazing and powerful women. I really thank you from a really deep and authentic space. We will have this again next year, so look to that. My closing, and thank you, Mark, for coming in and moderating in such a profound way. I want to say, if I'm honest about the Black girl, the magic, I go back and forth about that and what that means as I think about the word, because I think sometimes magic takes away, the word magic takes away from and it belittles the intellect, the grit, the talents, the bravery, the perseverance of women, Black women, and what we do. I like how Erica put it in terms of the magic being taking all the scraps and making it into this beautiful tapestry of progress and amazement. I want to say that I'm so appreciative for this space and you all holding space with me on today. And as you continue to make Black girl magic in your own spheres of influence, thank you. Thank you for being unapologetically Black. Thank you for being unapologetically a Black woman. Thank you for those who are behind, that you are holding the light up and for. And I want to end with naming our ancestors and some women who have gone before us and on whose backs we stand. Fannie Lou Hamer, Harriet Tubman, Katherine Johnson, Rosa Parks, Madam C.J. Walker, Michelle Obama, Viola Davis, Ruby Dee, Ava DuVernay, Nina Simone, Shirley Chisholm, Audre Lorde. And I'm going to end, I have a whole list, but because of time, I'm going to end with the most significant for us at this time, in my opinion, Ketanji Brown Jackson. You better get it. Thank you all. I don't know if Mark, if you want to end with anything, but I thank you all for your time today. I'm so eternally appreciative. It's Women's History Month, and you as Black women in my village, it's Women's Black History Month for us every day. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all. Talk soon.
Thank you all. Assata,
Thank you to the audience.
Laura.
Yes, Laura, you got that. Y'all, see you.
See you soon, Angeline, Erica.
All right, you too.
Bye, I'll see y'all in the streets.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome. Bye, all.
Enjoy.
Thank you so much.